Okay. I saw you throw a lot back.
You saw me throw 2 little red rocks.
Really? That was it?
That was it.
Wow. Look at that one.
That's a nice grab.
We're heading out of Cannery Point Cove, the anchorage we were in last night. This time we're heading up the inlet, so we thought we'd just tow the tender. And for our little trip, the cats are just hanging out back here on the couch. There is a fish hatchery located at the entrance to Burnett Inlet. Fish farms are not allowed in Alaska, but fish hatcheries are used to boost salmon production by harvesting eggs, growing them to young fry, and then releasing them into the wild.
Cruising up Burnett Inlet at 50 times real speed. Burnett Inlet is about 4.5 miles long and relatively narrow. It can only be traversed safely at high water slack. At other times of the tide, the current can be quite strong and there can be not enough water. At a zero tide, I think at the shallowest spot, there's about 1 foot of water. When we went through, the lowest we ever saw was 8 or 9 feet under the keel, so 14 or 15 feet of total water. It was a great cruise back, just careful, threading our way through, watching the depth sounder, and going relatively slow through the section where it was the shallowest. At the end, it opens up into a very large bay that was all 30 or 40 feet deep and made for a great anchorage.
I'm filming you, just so you know.
I'm just holding on to the screw area right now.
For dear life, huh? Yeah.
I decided to have some fun, jump in the water, and clean the bulbous bow and the water line around the boat.
Are you sitting on your bulb? Okay, you gotta look up and wave.
All right.
Which is what you're trying not to do, yes. Do you have to scrub very hard?
No.
It's just basic sun and slime. Yeah. Jim's snorkeling in really shallow water.
You want to come get me?
Sure. Sea Ventures anchored out in Burnett Inlet at the head of the inlet where we've been hanging out and crabbing a little bit. We've taken the tender to shore and we've used the anchor buddy to set her off a little bit, so she's sitting right there because it's high tide right now and we're going to head out on a little bit of a hike. And Jim's up here at the trailhead and we're going to walk through there and see what we find.
A combination of Forest Service trail and logging road allows you to hike from the head of Burnett Inlet to the head of Anita Bay, where we anchored earlier this year.
Here's the sign or indicator that there's a trail on the beach. Sometimes they're black and white, sometimes red and white. Anyway, that's what we've seen. So we're going to walk up this way. Here's the trail looking back at the water. And then through these trees, and then here's the trail. There's the trail we just exited from the water, and here is the road that it meets up with, and it looks like logging in that direction with this muskeg forest. Which is what we walked through. And then now we're walking down this way because It's supposed to take us to
Anita Bay,
Anita Bay.
where we anchored like last October.
Yeah. All right, we've walked down our road from the other trailhead, and we came up to another T. And this looks like a much busier road.
These are all logging roads.
Wait, let me show them what we found on the ground here.
Oh.
First of all, we came upon this arrow that says to take a right, and then we thought, well, let's take a look at our Garmin.
Because we brought our Garmin InReach with us and we haven't normally done it.
I can film this.
Can you see it? Maybe not. It's okay. It's okay.
No. Okay.
So
but
our InReach is how you track us on our website. So you're going to see the tracks from our hike today. But it tells us clearly now at this T to know the bay that we're going to. We can see where we anchored before over that way, that we want to go that way down the road. So it's kind of cool. Anyway, we have not taken our Garmin InReach off the boat before, so this was a new experience to do that. But we did because we're hiking a few miles and we're in the woods, and I think this island is full of black bears. We have our Garmin. It also has our emergency beacon built into it, so kind of cool.
And we yell a lot. Hey, bear!
Hey, bears! Yeah, yeah.
There we go. So we're off down that way. We passed a few more roads or turnoffs, but where we want to go is to the water, that-a-way. Anita Bay.
Saw some signage where the Park Service has been struggling with abandoned vehicles on these islands, and apparently this is where they've been collecting them up. Rosie went to see if there were any Forest Service folks at home, but no one was around.
All right, it looks like Sea Venture's still there.
The tender's floating in the water.
Oh, that's the most important. Well, Sea Venture's pretty important too, but...
There's little white caps around the boat though.
All right, we've returned. There's Sea Venture. And a little bit of wind out there with some white caps in the bay, and our tender is still floating. Woohoo!
Back aboard Sea Venture, the wind was blowing about 20 knots.
Jim's off to check the crab pots this morning, do a final check and grab them before we get ready to head on out of here.
We're getting all the mud off the chain. After a couple nights with 30 knots of wind here, definitely well anchored.
That's a mucky mess. We've had so many rocky anchorages. This is so new.
Kind of different for Alaska. Not Puget Sound, but Alaska's more rock, less mud.
We've exited Burnett Inlet and entered Clarence Strait. There's small craft advisories in Clarence Strait, but we're at the very north end, so we were hoping it would be pretty okay. And we have about 10 to 15 knots of wind. Reasonable seas on the beam here, but it's okay. We added the fish, that really made a difference between the bulb and the fish. They seem to work together pretty well, but we're getting a lot of spray up on the bow. But that's just the nature of it. get out to a point, and then we'll turn north a little bit, and that should change our angle a lot better, and we won't have this long, look at this long fetch. I don't know what it is, but it's miles. So, woo. Here's the view out the window. A lot of saltwater spray is up on the glass, so. And we're going to work our way up that direction.
It still looks completely calm when you look in the camera.
It does. Here's the chart. We exited Burnett Inlet here, and we're crossing in front here. We have to get to a point there with Clarence Strait to our port side, about easily 30 miles and all the way into Dixon Entrance. So there's a lot of fetch going on. We're going to turn the corner right here and then work our way up to these islands and duck in behind there. So I think once we make the turn, it'll get softer and softer as we go along. So we're getting close.
Now that we're all the way out in Clarence Strait, it's calmed down. I think it's really interesting because we were kind of on the outer edge coming out and into that kind of 2 to 3 foot chop. And now that we're out in the middle of the open water, it's calmed down to like a 1 foot chop from behind us. So I don't know, I just find it really fascinating to figure out why the water in one spot is one way. You certainly can't interpolate from one area what it'll be in the next. Cruising today, we've had a truly rare sighting. Rarer than whales, bears, sea otters, sea lions. It's a sailboat sailing. Wing on wing, actually, going north. Truly a rare sighting for Alaska.
We're cruising by the last of the islets on our way to Sumner Strait. And fortunately, we have some current with us. We're doing 8891, so that looks pretty good. Go.
I turned 1 today.
Happy birthday!
Boat cake. Yay, happy birthday, Jim.
Yes, indeed.
A breezy morning this morning at our anchorage here at No Name Cove. It's not because this cove doesn't have a name. It's the actual name of the cove on the chart, No Name Cove. We're going to go up through Rocky Pass today and plan on going to the village of Kake. So we don't need the poles out for today. So I thought we'd show you how we pull the poles in, since people ask about it all the time. It's frankly pretty simple and not very exciting. But this line basically pulls the poles in. It does take a little bit of strength to do, but the first step is this guy is called the cricket, and it holds the pole in the down position when the paravane's not in the water. When the paravane's in the water, there's tremendous pressure pulling down. But without this, the pole could bounce up into the air. So this holds it tight. So we have to kind of break the back of it, and then we can pull up the pole. It takes a little bit of strength until you get it up. It goes into that little guy right up there. It gets cleated back off. And then we use a bungee, one of those items you need hundreds of on a boat, apparently, to just keep this little guy from folding around. And that's it, besides collecting up and storing our rope. So the goal today, we're going to transit Rocky Pass. Rocky Pass is an alternative to the Wrangell Narrows if you want a navigation challenge further to the west. It's a little bit shorter, it's much shallower with a lot more obstacles and a lot less navigation buoys. I think at one point actually the Coast Guard removed all the navigation buoys to discourage people from going there, but they reversed course and added them. But unlike the Wrangell Narrows, there's a lot of obstacles to go around where there are no navigation buoys, and it's shallow, so it's kind of a high water, slack tide transit through Rocky Pass. And so we've plotted our course, we've read all the information that we can about it. So that's going to be our goal today, is to transit north via Rocky Pass versus the Wrangell Narrows. Let's take a look on the chart so you can see what that looks like. This is a big overview. We start here and end our course here with 84 changes in course. So if we go here, we've got to go through an area here, through lots of shallows, lots of kelp, to the spot called Devil's Elbow. This is where the current is the fastest, the water is the shallowest, and the navigation the most difficult. And this is the area we're looking at to arrive right at high tide. And then we continue on northbound through this very narrow spot. Notice all the little stars, by the way, are rocks. And finally exit out the north end of Rocky Pass, where we hope to go to the little village of Kake today. So that's the plan as we head toward the entrance to Rocky Pass.
We're making our way to the entrance of Rocky Pass, but it's just beautiful out here. All these little islets. I wanted to kind of show you what we're passing by on the way in. Hope the clouds lighten up and we can see a little bit more, but as it is, at least it's dry, so that's really nice. And that's looking out towards Sumner Strait. We're entering the first narrow area. You can see us at the bottom of the screen down here, and working our way through this, what looks like a really narrow space. But when you look out the window, it's all at high water, so it still looks like a pretty good-sized body of water. You just got to be aware of what's underneath the water.
They call it Rocky Pass, though, and if you look along the edges, you can see dozens of boulders sticking up out of the water, even at high tide.
Here's the chart. You can see the green land that's covered at high water, but all of the rocks or whatever underneath it. Here's the look out the window. And what's our depth, Jim?
19 feet.
And we're at 19 feet and we're at 11 foot, 12 foot tide. So good thing we're here at high tide. All right, we made it around our interesting green marker here, and now we're working our way up to what looks like going around an island or something, because we can see markers beyond it. It's really interesting to see how flat everything is here. We've done so much stuff in fjords recently that it's kind of cool to see the other extreme. Here's the next section we're going through. This is Summit Island over here. Here's the view out the window. But we're headed that way.
You're there somewhere.
Yeah. Check it out. See the red marker on the island there? We need to go to the left of it and keep it on our starboard side, but you can see how water just skinny works its way through it. This is the summit of Rocky Pass, and we're working our way that direction. And this is at high tide. I can't imagine what it would look like at low tide. Seven and 8.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
I like our timing, Rose.
Good. We're against the current now, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I like that.
So
We're
we have
going
more
5.6
steerage.
knots, so we have lots of steerage.
Yep. We're back up at 10 knots, so that's, or 10 feet under the hull, so that's
You filming?
good. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Sweet. It looks so cool. This is a narrow little passage.
12 feet. I'm in charge of feet and filming. So trying to keep tabs on both. 13 feet. And that's under the hull. And so that accounts for our 6-foot draft.
Yeah.
So
As long as that stays above 0, we're good.
yeah.
So cool. And this is at high tide. Can you imagine how little water is here at low tide? You can see the current coming off the edge of the island here.
Right.
We're doing 5.5 knots, so a solid 2-knot current. 15 minutes ago, we had the current with us.
Yeah. We're still at 14, 15 feet, so that's good.
After our transit of Rocky Pass, we approached the small village of Kake. Kake is very small. The village itself is located a few miles from the marina, so we took the tender into town. There's not much there, but a small grocery store. As Barkley watches over the bow and we slowly approach our slip, that's SV Fern, our friends who we spent our time in Ford's Terror, docked on the same finger pier. It was our last chance to connect up with Fern for their near future, since they were headed south and we were headed north from this spot forward. Thank you for watching, subscribing, liking, and commenting. It's all very much appreciated. Until next time, wishing you no wind and flat seas.